Hi there, and welcome to FAOff Flight School. My name is Commander Similar Motion, and I am here to help teach you how to fly in Flight Assist Off in Elite Dangerous. This series of videos is meant to give you a guide to the basics of Flight Assist Off Flight and to teach you about some of the more advanced concepts as we get further into the series. This first video is all about the differences between FA off and FA on flight and some of the very basic skills and drills needed to become proficient in flying with Flight Assist Off. So I'd like to start by explaining some of the differences between Flight Assist Off and Flight Assist On. So the first main difference with Flight Assist Off versus Flight Assist On is that Flight Assist Off doesn't counter inputs for you like Flight Assist On does. So when you're flying in Flight Assist On, the direction you go is the direction that your ship points if you don't do anything else except throttle up. Flight Assist Off, it doesn't work that way. One of the other differences with Flight Assist Off is you get a percentage more maneuverability. So you get roughly 40% more pitch, 40% more roll speed, and 40% more yaw speed. So that's an advantage of Flight Assist Off flight. One of the main things with Flight Assist Off is that whenever you give an input, forward, up and down, side to side, in order to stop that, you need to give an equal and opposite amount of thrust to counter the inputs that you make. This is what Flight Assist On does for you by default. And so this means that your ship's vector is the term that refers to the direction that your ship is moving. Your vector is independent from your ship's facing orientation. So you're not always moving the direction that your ship is pointed in Flight Assist Off flight. There are a few golden rules to flying with Flight Assist Off. The first one is to always know your speed. As you start to practice with Flight Assist Off, you're going to realize that being aware of your speed is really important because you'll need to know when you need to counter your input to stop. You'll need to know how much thrust will get you to a certain speed and how it changes depending on how you input other thrust and so on. So that's the first golden rule. Always know your speed. The second golden rule of FA off flight is always know your vector. The way that you find your vector in Flight Assist Off is by looking at the space dust that flies across the screen, the windshield of your ship. You will need to become proficient at reading what this is telling you about your vector. So the direction that the space dust is flying is the opposite direction that your ship is moving, if that makes sense. So watching the space dust is really, really important. The third and probably most important golden rule of Flight Assist Off is use the least amount of input necessary to achieve your desired directional change. So don't overcorrect when you're trying to counter your inputs, and don't fall into the trap like a lot of people do of holding the thrust in a certain direction while you're moving like you would need to do with Flight Assist On. Because what that's going to do is that's going to make your speed higher than you want it, or make it harder for you to then change direction. You'll push your speed out of that blue zone that keeps your maneuverability higher, which will make it harder for you to change directions going forward. So remember the golden rules of FAO flight. Always know your speed, always know your vector, and use the least amount of input necessary to achieve your desired action. All right, let's get started with the exercises for this week's video. I am here at the Forester's Choice station in the Upaniclus system, but you could do these from any place, just so long as you have a stationary fixed point to use as your reference. So the exercises for the first session are meant to be very basic. They are meant to help you to gain a more fine-tuned control over the different axes of the ship that you're flying. A couple of things to remember from earlier are the golden rules of FAO flight. Always know your speed, always know your vector, the direction that you're moving, and always use the minimal amount of input needed to perform your desired action. So I'm going to take off here and introduce what the first exercise is going to be. So we're going to move around, and we are going to go to a different spot on the station. So you can see there are plenty of areas to use as a fixed point. I'm going to use this long beam that connects to the spinning bio parts here as my reference point. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to turn flight assist on and zero out my speed. So now my ship is not moving at all. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get used to moving on a single axis of movement. Let's start with the rotational axis first. So what I want you to do, you zero out your movement, and then we turn flight assist off. And using only your rotational axis, start to spin your ship. Now, the goal is to stop your movement without overcorrecting. You can see I have the slightest bit of overcorrection there. As you're practicing, see if you can do this without overcorrecting, which would mean that you start moving in the opposite direction. Doing this is going to give you a much more fine-tuned control over what your ship is doing as it's moving. So we'll do it again, and as you can see, I am using a minimal amount of input to stop my motion. And if you overcorrect a little bit, that's fine. There's no need to worry. Coming to a complete stop with flight assist off is actually quite tricky to do. And so getting most of the way there is the main goal. So continue practicing. Try spinning the other direction to start off with and stopping your ship exactly where you started. So you can see even I am not perfect, and it's okay not to be completely perfect, especially when you're starting out. As you're doing this, be careful not to engage in the other axes of movement, so none of your other directional axes, your pitch and your yaw, keep them stationary as much as possible. If, for example, you are doing this and you get some other motion it's perfectly okay to go back to flight assist on and zero out your motion and then toggle it back off. Completely and totally okay to do. Once you feel comfortable with your roll axis, the next thing to do is to work on your pitch axis. So again, get yourself in an orientation where you have a fixed point. Zero out with flight assist on. And then instead of doing the roll axis, we're going to do the pitch axis. So I'm going to pitch up, and then I'm going to stop my motion and attempt to not overcorrect. Now I'm going to go back to the same spot and stop. So see how I went too far there? One of the things I want you to try and do, which I have done a pretty poor a job of showing in my example right now, is not to try and go fast. Fast is not the goal right now. Slow and controlled movements is the goal. And so as you do this, work on your fine-tuned control of each of these axes of movement. As you start to get more comfortable, you can go faster, but remember, speed is not the goal. Control is the goal. And sometimes you will need to sometimes you'll overcorrect and you'll need to fix it. And that's fine, that's normal. What we want to avoid is a situation where you find yourself trying to overcorrect and fix your direction, and so you're going back and forth like this to try and stop it. That's what we want to avoid. So now we've done the roll axis, the pitch axis. The final one is our yaw axis. Now the yaw axis is the slowest one. You have the least amount of movement in your yaw axis, and this is normal. So as I move here, you're going to see that we move a whole lot slower than the other directions. That is one of the limitations of the flight model in Elite Dangerous. This is to be expected. So as you're practicing on the yaw axis, just bear that in mind and really try and focus on control. And as you're practicing these 3 exercises, the main things to focus on are not overcorrecting, not using more input than you need to make your desired outcome, and really getting good at controlling these axes of movement. So now that you've gotten comfortable with the rotational directions, the next thing we need to do is work on our movement axes. So our thrust, our forward and reverse thrust, our lateral thrust, and our vertical thrust. We're going to be doing the same kind of thing, except now we are using our thrusters and not our rotational axes. So come to a complete stop. Use flight assist on to zero out your movement, and then toggle flight assist off.
Flight assist off.
The first direction we're going to do is our horizontal thrust, our lateral thrust. So pick a direction and make sure to only engage that one direction of movement as you go to the side, and Decide on a fixed point you want to stop at and counter your movement so that you don't overcorrect. Go the other direction and try and stop at the spot of your desired endpoint. Now, once again, it's probably not going to be perfect, and that's okay. You don't have to be perfect, and it's very difficult to be perfect and have such fine-tuned control, especially right off the bat when you're getting used to flying in flight assist off. And remember that true zero vector is really difficult to achieve. So, as you're doing this, focus on control, not on speed. The slower and more controlled you are, the better. If you have flight sticks with analog control, try and get used to how the analog control changes the way you move and changes the speed at which you are able to stop your motion. Once you get comfortable in your lateral direction, toggle flight assist on, flip around so you have a good area to do, and then let's use our vertical thrust. So toggle flight assist off, and this time do the same thing in the vertical axis of motion. And same as before, focus on control rather than speed. Control rather than speed. And if, as you see there, I've got a tiny bit of overcorrection or over input, try very hard to limit this as much as possible. And I know that that is easier said than done, but the more that you focus on not overcorrecting and not over inputting at the beginning, the better. See right there, that was a bad example. And as you go, and as you get more experience, you will have a better idea of how quickly your ship can stop. And as you're doing this, it's really, as you're moving, it's important to pay attention to the speed of your ship. Remember, that's one of our golden rules of flight assist off flight. So every once in a while, glance at your speed indicator to see how quickly you're moving and how long it takes you to stop at that particular speed. Eventually, you'll get a feel for this and not have to rely so much on thinking about it. It'll just be muscle memory. Once you're confident in your vertical direction of movement, the last one is forward and reverse thrust. I've saved this one for last because it can be more challenging to, well, at least now there are some stakes. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to move forward and backwards from the station. So get to a point where you are away from the station, toggle flight assist off, and start going straight towards the fixed point. Try and come to a stop without hitting the station. And as you do this, try not to overcorrect so that you start moving backwards. Now, move away from the station and come to a stop. Your speed indicator can help a lot with this. Move forwards towards the station and stop. Move back and stop. Remember, the idea is not to go fast. It's to be controlled and precise. If moving forwards and backwards from the station isn't a good option for you, move so that you are kind of parallel with whatever your fixed point is. And then use that as your fixed point to stop near. And so you can use like the guide arm on the side that I've been using as my fixed point. Remember, speed is not the most important thing here. It is control. So the slower and more controlled you are with your movements here, the better. All right, so the next exercise we're going to do is we're going to combine two of these axes of movement. Find a fixed point and toggle flight assist off. Now, the goal is to use your vertical and lateral thrust to move in a diagonal line. Remember, the goal here is not to go fast. The goal is to be precise and controlled. This is difficult. You can see I am having some difficulty with this as well. This is going to help you to get some more fine-tuned control over moving in multiple directions at the same time. Go slow. Don't try and go fast. The slower, the better. And as you are attempting to stop your motion, remember that overcorrecting is something we want to avoid. And as you do more of this, it will become muscle memory. And once you get comfortable in one direction, go the other direction so that you can get used to the other axes of movement as well. And remember, it's not going to be perfect, and it's especially difficult when we're working with such small amounts of movement. So if you have a bigger space, it might be easier for you as well. All right, the final exercise of this week's session is about quieting your ship. Now, what I mean by quieting your ship is sometimes you will find yourself in a chaotic state where you are moving and spinning and going in all sorts of directions at the same time, and you might not be able to control this. Quieting your ship is being able to regain control of your motion. So the final exercise is one where we are going to introduce a chaotic state. We're going to do this by knocking ourselves against the side of the station. So I'm going to go at a rate of speed and knock myself against the side of the station. And your goal is to stop your motion and regain control of your ship. And how quickly you can do this is the goal. So I would recommend, as you start, to do it more slowly than I just did. So knock into the station wall, and then see if you can zero out your motion as quickly as possible. And so just keep doing this and trying to introduce different chaotic states of your ship, and try to zero out and regain the control quickly. Regaining control doesn't necessarily mean that you stop your ship. It just means that you regain control and can make the motions that you want to make. This is a really important skill to master, especially as you are just learning flight assist off flight, because a lot of times you're going to be in a situation where maybe your ship has gotten out of control and you just need to reacquire your control of your ship. So these are the main things I want you to focus on for this week's session. Getting a better control of your ship's velocity, your vector, and all of the axes of motion that your ship follows. Next week's session will continue to focus on some of these fundamental practices, one of which is tethering, which I can kind of show you here. Tethering is where you find a moving point, a fixed moving point, and you try to tie or tether your ship in onto that point. So you stay where that point is focused right in the center of your screen. Now this is kind of a fast moving tether, and it's a more difficult one to show you with, but we'll be working on this as the primary focus of our next session. So I hope you enjoyed the first session, and I hope it was helpful for you. Have a great day, and I will see you next week.